If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Many things change. So how you're doing regarding everything on the Workday side, like how the work front is, then we'll start with Studio also. Do a small bit of recap and we'll again start with what we have.
Yes.
So give me a minute. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll share my screen quickly. Just give me a minute.
Yes, yes.
Just a minute. Just let me know when you see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, so yeah, this is the new studio that you're seeing. So 2023 upgrade has already taken place. So if you have updated your studio, go ahead and update your studio. First thing, regarding this update, many of people are facing some issues because this update is a little different one. Reason is this time Workday has said that it needs JDK 11 rather than JDK 8 or 8 version we were using, a 9 version we were using back then. But for this, it's a mandatory JDK 11. So prior to the installation or prior to the update, have a JDK 11 already, or have a JDK 11 there in your system. So
I just got it installed and I updated it yesterday. So
good. So everything is done on your side then.
yes.
Okay, so let me close everything first. Let's start fresh. Okay, great. So back then we were discussing, like I remember I was just doing some revision today. Back that time we were discussing about listener services.
Correct.
Okay, and I said you that when next class we'll do actually a sample this of listener service, right? So I have a, oh my god, where is Postman? Yeah, why there is a setup showing? Okay, so Postman is one of the tool. Just like SOAP UI, we have, I don't know why it got uninstalled. Strange, because I was using it someday before. Anyways, till the time it is installing back. So listener services, just a small recap again on listener services. Any studio that we today. So if I'll just take off, I'm just opening any studio. Okay, I'm just opening a studio of let's say what I should open. Recent created studio, and you have take. I'll just take this studio for an example as of now. So this is just a PDF merge integration. Now I saw Postman there. Okay. So any studio if you're talking about, you must be aware of the services. And when we talk about services, one of the services, listener service. Okay. And how do we go ahead and how do we see this listener service, or how do we install this list? How do we actually use this listener service in a real-time example? Like a thing that has to be done is first you need to configure it here.
Okay.
Listener service. That's the first thing that we need to do, and that's all. We don't need to again reconfigure backend tenant. Like for an example, if I say I do a retrieval service, I have to deploy it back to the. Just a minute. I have to deploy it back to the tenant, and again I have to configure the retrieval addresses there. Okay, like SFTP or anything like that. So like SFTP or anything like that. Okay, so what we are seeing here is that in case of listener service, okay, when I talk about listener service does not require anything else. on the background, what listener service does, a listener service basically listens for a type of it is a service which listens a type of request that may be invoked by an outside system for calling the listener service which is configured inside this studio. Okay, that's the thing. Now, Postman. Okay, Postman is here. Great. So now, how do we see? How do we actually go ahead and see this listener service? Is I used to have a tenant access. Let me connect to. I hope I can connect to this tenant. Okay. Do one thing. Do you have like on your machine right now? Do you have the studio installed?
Oh no, it's a personal laptop.
Okay, that's fine. Let me connect. I hope it should connect. Okay, great. Okay, I guess.
So yeah.
No, you were having some question. Go ahead.
Oh no, if you want, maybe I can go get my work laptop and I won't be able to share the screen, but I can try parallelly.
No, basically, I wanted to. I don't have a tenant access here. Great. Okay. So even if I deploy, okay, I can try that. Okay, what I can do is, okay, first of all, I'll just show you a sample listener. Okay.
Okay.
So how do I'll just create a very small request of a listener service. Just a minute. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. You can. Okay. Sorry, I was talking on YouTube. I have signed into the system. I've signed in my system through Workday. You've seen, right? So
Yeah.
this is the studio. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, this is the tenant.
Tenant.
Yeah.
Oh.
So tenant. Okay. So we can sign in through here also, and there is a search bar. I hope there is a search bar. Okay. What I can do is I can take this and rather I'll just try to sign in here. So great. We'll have a sign in here. Okay. So we have a sign in here. Okay. I've closed this. Now what I'm trying to do here. See, this is a simple studio. Okay. Which
Okay.
has a parameter, nothing. Now, if you give launch parameter, I'll show you the studio may come down to an error. How it will come down, I'll tell you. So this is a listener service. Okay. I have given it a name sample dash listener. You can give it any name you want. Okay. Just
Okay.
for a namesake, I've given it samples dash listener. Okay. If I give a launch parameter here, it may be any type of launch parameter. Okay. You must be aware of the launch parameter types, right? It
Yes.
is simple, it is referenced, it is enumeration. Okay.
Correct.
I'll just take an example of a simple type of launch parameter. I'll just say validation mode. I'll just name it validation mode. I'll keep it as Boolean type launch parameter. Okay. And I'll try to save class. Okay. And when I try to save this class, you see there is a cross coming here. Okay.
Correct.
And when I hover around this cross, it says me that listener service and launch parameter are mutually exclusive.
Correct.
What does this mean? That both cannot exist alongside each other. Okay. Either one should. So saying that, it means that whenever you are using listener service in any of your studio, that studio need not have any launch parameter. If it is having, you may not be able to deploy your studio, or your studio may be just in error. Okay. So that's the thing. So I remove the launch parameter. Once I remove the launch parameter, save it back and see it's back again. Okay.
Correct.
So that's the beauty of listener service, that it does not works with launch parameter. If it would have worked with launch parameter, it would have created a chaos that we'll discuss later. But second thing to know about listener service is, so first thing what I see you is that we configure a sample listener. Okay. We configure a sample listener and there is a launch parameter. Okay. What is the second thing that we do is, I have just taken an eval parameter and what I have written is da.toVar 0, v prior data. Now I ask you, do you know the meaning of syntax, or I shall explain?
The document accessory class.
Okay.
Uses media.function.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is document accessor. Exactly. Like, so document accessor we have heard about a lot. So document accessor, when we use our document retrieval service, it actually stores, and it's just like a class. It's just like a Java class. Okay. Stored inside work. And if we try to see what all things are inside DA, we can always find by DA dot control space. If I press, so I'll see all the functions inside this class. Okay. Da dot all labels, da dot get data, da dot equals get file name. In case you want to get the file name and based on file name you want to process your files, you can have that thing here inside DA. Okay. Sometimes the customer says that, okay, I have 2 files, but I don't want to process this file. I want to process this file. Okay. So this is the thing. And okay, so next are da dot size and all these things are there. Okay. So coming back again here is, if we come back again, now what does da.toVar mean? What this statement means basically is, whatever things we receive, we'll try to store it in a variable called v priorita. That's why da.to variable. Basically it's 2 variable. We reset 2var. Okay. Store it in a variable known as v priorita. It can be any variable. It can be your name or my name also. Okay.
Yes.
What we're trying to do is, we are trying to save it inside a variable. That's it. Okay. But what we are trying to save it? Okay. The next question is, what we are saving? So whatever is coming from the list, from whatever the render is sending us. Okay. Now next question would again, you would ask, what would be this vendor send us and how it knows that where it has to send? 2 things, right? What will the vendor send us? The second question is, how would the vendor know where it has to send? I have created this studio. I'm not yet deployed yet, right? I've just created the studio on my machine. Vendor does not have any information. I've just created a service. I've just created a listener service. That's it. I've not done anything else, right? So how would vendor know all this about URLs and everything? I'll tell you. Next is, I just used a copy component where the way input is a v prior data, output is just like a message, and in the log I try to give the message content. Means in the log I'll try to see whatever the message sent by vendor, I'll try to see it in a log. As simple as that. Okay. Yes. Simple studio. Okay. Let's see how it works. Okay. Let's go ahead and deploy this.
Okay.
Why it is installing now? Okay. Was there right before? Okay. Let it install. So I'll just go ahead and deploy the studio. I'll save this also. I'll go ahead, next, added, next, move, finish. I agree. Is Postman here? Postman. It has been deployed. Okay. I'll just I'll just show you back here now. This is the okay. I'll just refresh this once.
Okay.
Too many applications. Sorry. I hope it must be. You see here, right?
Yes.
This is our plan. Correct. This is our integration as well. This is our integration which has been deployed to the tenant.
Correct.
Now, what do we do next? The answer is what do we do next? We first expand it. Okay. How did I expand? I just clicked it here.
Yeah.
The next thing is I just expand this again. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go to this start here component. This start here. I'll do a right click here, and there is a something known as copy launch URL. Once I click it, it will get a launch URL. I copy this. Okay. And my Postman is open here. So I'll create a new request so that everything is from the start. Okay. So that once you do something with Postman, you know what to do. So you have to just first go back. You have to click on new, an HTTP request that we are creating. Now, types what we need to select. Okay. There is get, post, put, patch, delete, copy. Many things are there. Get is basically to retrieve data from the resource. Post is to create data into the resource. Put is to update data into the resource. And patch is to partially update the data into the resource. Okay. What we are trying to do here is post. Okay. We are trying to post. What we are trying to post first. Second thing, where we are trying to post. Copy launch URL. This is the URL. Okay. I've given the URL. Okay. Now in the body, we'll try to post an XML. Okay. It can be. Okay. So I'll try to get an XML from any old request. I'll get this. I hope I get an XML. Body. Okay, what I'll do, I'll create a simple XML request. That's not a problem. So what we'll do here is we'll create a raw file and which will be of type XML. Okay. And I will take any sample XML. I'll just try to here write sample XML. View a sample XML. I'll just take this XML. Okay. Which the vendor will send us. Okay. What will happen when they send us? First, I'll go back to the tenant. I'll show you this integration in the tenant as of now, how it is. Okay. If we see this tenant, give it a minute. Okay. So as of now, if I go ahead and see the events of this integration, what do you think? There will be any event? No, right? Right. So there should not be any event. Like we haven't launched the integration from here or from anywhere, right? So first, let us see. Let us verify. So we'll go for OK and we'll see. Nothing, right? So we see nothing here. Now, what next we need to do? The next thing that we need to do is let's fire this. But for that, first we need an authorization also. This is the second thing that we have. That what kind of authorization would be followed when we are talking about business services? There are many kind of authorization existing in Workday, starting from a basic auth. Auth 1.0 is not used. Basically, there basic auth is used. Auth 2.0 is used. Okay. So as of now, till today, listener services uses basic authentication. When I say basic authentication means it will take a username and a password. Okay. It will not take OAuth 2.0 or sorry, OAuth 2.0. OAuth 2.0 is basically exchange of data through tokens. We'll get to that. But basic auth is basically username and password. So the username of this is the username which I logged in. Basically in real time it has to be an ISU name. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
In real time it has to be @tenant name. Okay. So this is the tenant name. You'll give the password as it is. What the password is. So body is there now, XML, authorization is there, okay, post is there, we have a launch URL. Let's do a send, we'll get a response over here. Let's see what we get. So when we launch this, once we launch this, so we get a response. Okay? We get a response. Now you see there is a response coming from where. Now if you try to see the integration event reference, now this is a Workday ID, okay?
Correct.
This is a Workday ID. If you try to look on this Workday ID, I'll just duplicate the tab here and I'll see what is this Workday ID. But this Workday ID is nothing but I have duplicated the tab. You'll see it here automatically that it has actually went and launched it.
Yeah.
The event is launched. If you see the Workday, bring back here. So integration event got launched. Okay. From where? From outside. Okay.
Correct.
From outside, and there is a XML document. Basically, it's put integration message. I had so in an XML document. If I'll just try to put it here, what is this? Same thing, right? Which I tried to some notepad. Now this is a system. This is nowhere linked to what I inside Workday is happening, but I've sent in a XML which gave me this. Correct?
Correct.
Now this is how listener service works. Okay, very simple example of listener service. Okay, I'll close everything. So this is how listener service works. Now I'll get back here and try to give an OK. Try to remove. Okay, so this is how listener service works. Okay, so listeners basically, now what is the real-time use case of listener service? The next question can be, what is the real-time use case of a listener service? So let me tell you a real-time use case. I discussed it with you also, the background check thing. Okay, so basically when a background check happens within an organization, the organization do it by themselves. Okay, they either give it to some third-party vendor like HireRight or some other. Okay,
Correct.
or some other vendor. Okay, so what these vendors basically do, for an example, I'm taking your situation as a time. You applied for a new company, ABC. Now, ABC, your background check. So it will take your candidate data. Candidate data, it is stored inside Workday only. It will take that data, and through any outbound, there would be an integration developer sitting in the inside this company known as ABC. Okay.
Correct.
Let's say John is an integration developer who is working in ABC as a Workday integration developer, and John has created an outbound integration. I'm not talking about listener service now. He has created an outbound integration that can be of type Studio, EIB, anything. Okay, which basically runs at time to time, and it sends candidate data for background check. Okay. Now, what happens next is this. We send this outbound integration sends this data to this HireRight people. Okay, it may be in a file or some other way. Let's take it is they send this data through a flat file to HireRight. Okay, HireRight gets this data. HireRight gets your data. Okay, your data may have anything as such, like anything, your information, basically whatever your information you have entered. Okay, now they will do a background check based upon the information that you have entered. Okay, and based upon the background check, they may come back with a proper status for you. That can be rejected, that can be passed, that can be in review, whatever it is, based upon whatever it's right. Now, let's say I am from HireRight. Okay, I took 5 days and I did a background check status. Okay, now so basically I have to update Workday back, right? I have to update that company ABC that okay, this candidate has passed this background check, and you have to update the status of background check status passed in your system, in your status, wherever you're storing inside Workday, that you have to do. Okay, I have to send that status to you. Okay, so what are few ways of doing that? Few ways of doing that is either I get your data in a file and then send that file to Workday, or keep that file in an SFTP. Workday extracts from SFTP and they then they process it and then they update it. One of the way. Okay. One of the ways. The second way is I create a listener service. Okay. I create an integration, inbound integration, which has a listener inside it. And I say my vendor that, okay, whenever you have the data ready, whenever you have the status ready, take this launch URL, take this ISU, take this password. Whenever you have your data ready with the status, just fire me that XML and I will be updating all the information. Okay.
Okay.
This is the second way of doing the listener service, which is generally faster in nature. Okay. This saves time for vendor by not allocating an SFTP at that point of time and keeping the file. So all these kind of process now gets eliminated. It's just two systems now. It is not an SF which is sitting in the middle. So this is how we optimize the process. Okay. Coming back to Postman now. Okay. What I missed saying you is that when I send a request, I got a response also, right? I got a response. Now this seems like a very complicated response. Okay. Like if I try to now understand it. Okay. This response is a Workday driven response. Okay. It's a response of Workday driven response. If the client says, if a vendor says, for an example, I am higher right. Okay. I have sent this, I will get this kind of response. Okay. And if I say you that, hey John, that you are the integration developer for ABC. So whatever this response that I'm getting, please try to change this response. I want to get a custom response in which success is written, in which something is written that data for Sushma has been sent and it has been updated to this. Something that has to be. Can this be done? So yeah, he will ask to John, can this be done? So John will say that this is not possible because this response we don't have any control of. So long story short, we cannot change this response. So if tomorrow there is a request to change this system, as of now we cannot change it. Later in future it happens, we don't know. But as of now, the response that we get from listener service cannot be changed. Okay, that's the thing. So that's how you saw listener service working on a real-time manner. Okay, I showed you a very small example. If I'll just now what a thing I was talking about, the whole background check thing, I will just show you the direct class of that. Okay, so which I built. It was long back, 3 or 4 years ago. I built this class. So it may not be in the format of studio that we built now. So I'll just show you this, which is I guess this is the one. So okay, so this is the integration that I built. Okay, back in 20, I guess 2018 or something. So in this services, if you see, there is a listener service, correct? Now, what I do when I do a retrieve file, okay, here I call this basically don't this is fine, but if da.size is greater than 0, da.toVar input file. Okay, this input file is nothing but the XML that we are getting from them. Okay, and next I would check da size is greater than 0. If it is greater, then it is no input file or input file error. Okay, then I again check, like then I again re-verify a few things from the response. Basically, they send us something, right, in XML. So I verify the XML, and like I have written few of my own things, right? This is regarding the requirements. So this is as per requirements. Okay. So whatever the requirements I had, I gave whatever the I gave whatever the this constant has to be written here. I gave all the things. I extracted everything in the props, and I had a validation statement next that whatever it has to be.
So, is it like I see that you are equating it to empty. It's just to um, basically pass the null and remove all the values from the previous run, right?
Uh, Basically, I got an XML, right? So similarly, like you have this XML. Okay, I also got an XML. So I extracted the XML
Mhm.
data into this, like order status are those values basically
Mhm.
which we get from the XML that they have sent us. I am
Mhm.
trying to evaluate that this order status, order date, order ID should not be empty. If it is empty, I'll
Mhm.
reject this.
Okay. Okay.
I'll
Got
try
it.
to reject this. Once this is done, okay, once this I've got, okay. The next thing that I do in retrieve file after retrieve file is get background check. Now basically I do a get background check on basis of what? On basis of the reference ID I've received. From where I've just received this reference ID, I'll go back here again. Now reference ID is what's being sent by them only. Now remember this thing, okay? Remember this thing. So if you see here, there would be a reference ID.
Mhm.
Reference ID one is here. There should be a reference ID. Yeah, there is a reference ID here, right? Now,
Mhm.
one thing to remember here, see, so I have evaluated your background check.
Okay.
5 days I send your background check. How this two can be verified based upon your candidate ID or something, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if I send your data to higher right, I would send them your candidate ID as a unique key also. If I get
Correct.
back a data also, I would expect that there would be a candidate ID written in the response also, right?
Correct.
That's the way I can upload or update the data, right? So basically, I pass this. Uh, basically, I pass this.
Reference ID.
Reference ID to get background check request. Why do I do that? Basically, I want to get few things like applicant ID, package ID, requester. These are all stored in Workday. Okay. I want to
Mhm.
get all these things. The next thing I do is put background check. Okay. Put background check is what? Background check ID. It's the order ID that I showed you. Order
Mhm.
date, background check status. Okay.
Mhm.
Status, background check package ID and everything. So basically what I did, I updated it, right? I updated it to the I updated it to the background check status by using a web service, put background request
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
same. So this is the real-time example of a class. Now, if I would have done this today, I would have used something different. That point of time, I would have not thought of cloud logs and everything back in 2018. But now I
Mhm.
would have used cloud log. I would have done it in some other way. I've used swim lane and all those things. But back in that time, this is
Mhm.
how I developed this cloud and how this was working fine. So this
Mhm.
is a real-time example of a listener service. In one way, there can be multiple different examples of a listener service. Okay, there can
Okay.
be any number of examples for listener service, starting from anything. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
so yes, that's the listener service for you that I had. Now a long lecture today, so I'll take a break and I'll ask that what thing you
Mhm.
have doubts on today.
Um, so, in our example, right, this is just a clarification. So, in our simple example that we did, right? So basically, we got the response. You recorded it in a put integration message. If at all, if we had to, put it or update it in Workday, we would have used a web service call and we would update a particular information to Workday, correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Anything that we need to update inside Workday is a very business-oriented tech. So it is
Mm-hmm.
not an open source till now. Like it is
Mm-hmm.
trying to give extend to us, Workday extend to us, but still extend is to the limited set of resources only. Those who
Mm-hmm.
extend, right? So it's still an open source. We cannot directly update data through anything. Like it, we have to either do it via iLoad or either advanced loader. iLoad has been replaced by advanced loader,
Yeah.
or either to do it via web services.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah. Next thing, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'll not show you this on listener service. So I wanted to, so listener service is this much only, okay? This is all about listener service, okay? How much complicated it can be, this is all about listener service. You cannot make it more complicated unless and unless something comes, okay? This is all about listener service that can be done. Now you have to implement it in a such a way that complicated situation becomes easy, okay? The thing that I want to discuss, like we don't have time, but I will take just start also at least a bit. I want to discuss you was debugging in studio. Okay, I hope you are aware of debugging in studio. So how often you are using debugging in studio when you're creating a studio from scratch? That's my question for you.
I'm very bad at it. I
Right.
want to.
That's you're not you don't know anything about it. That's a good thing. So we'll start everything fresh. That's fine.
Yeah.
So you don't use it often, right? You don't use it. Okay, not a problem. So few things I'll tell you from the design perspective, okay? So you may be today, I hope you're on a customer side of Workday, right? Today, you must be working on the customer side.
Correct.
So they may come with an enhancement most of the time. Development also they may come, but I don't know how the company works, but they may assign development to you. Either they may have a support team, which can be any of the partners. They give it to them or something like that. The thing that your company takes, I don't know, but that's how a company model works basically. So in a customer, you don't have much of a development experience when it comes to working with customer, right? Means you don't see a whole Workday customer, you don't see a Workday cycle of end-to-end development, right? Because it has already been implemented. You either develop one or two things, or you enhance the things, or you just support things, right? Three things happens. So either of the three things you will be doing. You don't see a whole cycle until and unless you are on a partner side. So tell you about two things here is whenever we are designing any kind of integrations, okay? So basically, what kind of integrations we design? I'm just talking about studios now, okay? So studios can be outbound, okay?
Correct.
Outbound is a type of a studio. Second is inbound. Third is bi-directional, maybe. One you must have heard about boomerangs.
Yeah.
There's something also called as API Studio, but I don't know what is API Studio because studio using any studio using web services and API Studio, but anything that we are sending outside like to HTTPS, any like where we are using HTTPS component, HTTP component, that we generally call as an API Studio. Okay, that is a kind of an outbound only. It is just a branch of an outbound API studio. It is, I would not call it another type of studio, but it is just a branch of an outbound. Okay. Now, let's say tomorrow if something comes to you, okay, when like you should be aware, like I'm just giving a simple example, okay. Tomorrow, if there is a requirement of a client that they are getting a new deduction added to their system, I will say this deduction ABC, okay, and they say that I will send you a file every day, every bi-weekly, Sushma, and you have to create an integration. You have to load pay inputs, okay, for an employee. The first question would be, what kind of studio you will choose here?
Inbound.
Correct. Inbound studio. Right? You will choose because you want to update data inside Workday.
Correct.
Right? So that's the first thing. Now, if second thing I ask you, Sushma, that you have a file, input file, okay, and you have, let's say, 4 lines of data. I'll just say they send 50 records on a bi-weekly basis, and you have to load them inside payroll inputs. So, how do you plan to design this integration? Okay. Second thing, the client asks you that how would you plan to design this integration? Design the integration, send it to us. We'll verify it by our lead, and then we'll give a go ahead for development. That's the thing that they do next. Right?
Okay.
So I would like to teach you the design thinking part of Studio.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not talking about inbounds. I'm talking about as in whole. Okay. Any kind of studio given to you. Okay. you understand Studio on a design perspective, design per se, okay, you can enhance that Studio. You can support that Studio. You can debug that Studio. You can troubleshoot that Studio. You can do anything on the Studio. Okay.
Correct.
So now all it is a very tricky thing that every studio follows a similar design pattern. Okay. Every inbound if you take, it will start with initializing the props, then getting the file retrieved, then verifying the retrieved data from file, then processing the file, then audit file. Every inbound studio takes this 4 steps of cycle that repeats everywhere. Okay. So what I teach you next is design part of how do we actually think on designing a studio rather than developing a studio. Okay. Development is just arranging few components. Okay. Designing is actually thinking how you are optimizing in design. When you're designing the studio, you're also thinking on the part of optimization. Okay. In designing, if you include 4 reports, okay, your studio will become automatically so slow because in design 4 reports would be used. But in design, if you are saying that instead like calling this 4 reports inside the studios, I'll use a DIS service and I'll take the data from there, it automatically enhances the studio. So now report is not being called in the studio, but the report is basically configured in the DIS service. So for this, you need to know what is a DIS service.
Correct.
How to the DIS service. Okay. Then you will think this, okay, I can do this, right? Now there is data coming from report, there is a data coming from input file. Okay. You need to verify the data from input file against the report data to see whether the data is a valid data sent to us or not. Basically, what you try to do is you would try to utilize a hash map, hash set kind of a thing in Studio to verify data from report and input file. That is long gone. Now we don't use hash set. We use XSLT 3.0. That is streaming. Okay. Now, if you know about XSLT 3.0, it will actually change many things from your design perspective. Okay. Like it will change the number of components also. So what would be so our the courses that we will be following next. Okay. So it will be structured based upon the design thinking part. So I will be today there was just a simple topic of listener service. So I just told you about listener service, which is just a topic in video. But next that we are going to discuss about debugging and everything, we'll actually take in consideration the design also. Okay. So I will teach you in such a way that tomorrow if you're given a design of a studio, so you will be able to do that also. Okay. So debugging is nothing but debugging is another perspective here in Workday, right? This is the Workday perspective. This is the report designer perspective where we create BERT. Okay. Where we create BERT, and there's a third perspective which is known as debug perspective. When we click on this perspective, okay, something like other kind of screen opens in front of us. This is the first time I'm opening after the update of this debug. I don't know how it will behave. So let it see. Let us see. Okay, there's a problem with the debug, I guess. I will have to just see it. Not an issue. Okay, no, there's not a problem with debug. I think here is debug. Okay, so this is how a debug looks like. Okay, variable, breakpoints, expression, properties, assembly. When I go in, when I go inside properties, how do I see things? When I go inside assembly, what do you mean a message root part? Attachment variables. There are 7 more things. Scratchpad. How these things actually help in like minimizing or basically understanding where the error is, how the error can be sorted, and how to actually exactly know where the error is on which component. Okay, debugging is a debugging takes some time. It's I would not say it's a very fast process. but it's a patient process. It requires your patience. Okay, so I'll teach you both debugging also, and I'll teach you how to get your how to debug the errors using consolidated reports also that gets generated in integration events. So these two things that we are going to cover in next. So basically our next class would include starting of debugging in Workday. Okay, we'll try to create a simple class. Okay, we'll debug that class. Okay, and we'll go into debug mode and we'll see how do we debug it. Okay, if there is an inbound studio, how do we debug an inbound? If there is an outbound, how we debug an outbound? So basically two only. The boomerangs can be also debugged. So but it is similar to an outbound only. So basically we are inbound and outbound studios debugging only. So once we are very much confident on these two type of studios, nothing else would be required. So yeah, so these are the two things that I wanted to start with this today, and I would like to conclude the session today here because I don't have anything else to discuss until and unless you have a question here. Yeah, that's it.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, Sushma. Chalo, bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.